Our first panelist is Dr. Lauren Becnel. She's the Director of Biomedical Informatics in the Dan L. Duncan Cancer Center and Lester and Sue Smith Breast Center. She's co-director of the Biostatistics and Informatics Shared Resource at Baylor College of Medicine, as well as assistant professor in the departments of medicine and molecular and cellular biology. She has over 10 years experience in biomedical informatics with 3 years experience as a technical program director. Dr. Becnel serves on numerous statewide and federal committees and informatics groups, acts as part of the National Advisory Panel for the development of the bridge model from the Clinical Data Interchange Standards Consortium. So I know we have someone who's interested in that, so clinical research and data exchange, and is PI or project PI on numerous basic, translational, and clinical research awards. Her group develops enterprise quality, database-backed biomedical research web application, provides high-quality service and support for high-performance computing infrastructure, and serves to help guide operations for collaborators.
Thank you for the introductions and the welcome, and it's a pleasure to speak with you all today. So I think the technical skills that are required to be successful within biomedical informatics, they vary. You know, project management, programming, understanding of ontologies, best practices for data management, you can run the gamut. So instead, I'll focus on hard skills and soft skills that in research really pay dividends. So from a hard skills perspective, I would say that you need to be an autodidact. You need to be able to teach yourself things on your own. You also need to have excellent time management. There will not always be someone to tell you when to stop. In my group, we have for programmers and data managers a 15-minute rule so that people don't get stuck on problems, but they know to go and ask for help. Because by saying that you should foster an independent spirit, of course, that can frequently be at odds with being able to ask for help when you get stuck. And I think you always want to go with the spirit of trying to find the answers yourself first, trying to figure things out, but then go to other experts, go to your mentors, go to your coaches, go to your colleagues. I think beyond that, it's very important to seek out mentorship. There certainly will be formal educational opportunities for you within your careers over time, but sometimes the informal training that you can get on a job is just as valuable. From a soft skills perspective, I think it's really critical for people to try and be leaders on their own. And that doesn't just mean being great at your job. It also means caring about the people who are on your team and making sure that they know that their success is your success. It means that you have to talk to them. You have to learn a little bit about them. You have to understand the difference between affirmation and acknowledgement. And it can really help teams come together and focus on their goals and then achieve them in a more timely fashion. I also think that documentation is incredibly important. It's usually the thing that is overlooked when people get into projects and get quite busy. I think in this economy, most projects tend to be financially strapped, at least on the research side of things. But if you don't document something, it didn't exist. So to give you a bit of background about how I came to be in this position, should you have any further questions about technical things or hard and soft skills, I actually I was a card-carrying wet bench biologist. So in college and in my PhD program, I was interested in cancer and in microbiology, which share similar mechanisms for resistance to drugs. And really enjoyed that. I never thought that I would actually be in a position of being an informatics director, but I applied for and won a pharmacoinformatics fellowship, which was part of the NIH roadmap when I was doing my PhD, and really loved it. I swapped to the dark side at that time and never really looked back. And there are just so many opportunities in terms of career development. I coach my staff to look for anything from being a project manager, business analyst, programmer analyst, to look at business intelligence, to look at being ontologists. You know, just being a programmer, if you're an informaticist, doesn't really say too much. There's certainly room for people who are tried and true software engineers, but I think that you all will have tremendous opportunities to really spread your wings and go in whatever area of domain expertise you'd like to pursue. If you guys have questions at the end, I welcome them, and I thank you for your time.
Our next panelist is Sherly Dawson, MBA. She's CEO of Dawson Consulting Group and former founding partner and president of Career Partners International in the Houston-Austin area. She is responsible for creating the vision and leading the growth of this Houston-based talent management consulting firm. Mrs. Dawson is widely recognized for her expertise in the areas of talent management consulting and coaching, program design and development, project management, and business planning and development. She introduced a number of web-based products and co-authored Job Search, the Total System, which has helped tens of thousands advance their careers and successfully transition into new roles. Dawson is certified in several behavioral assessments for selection, as well as leadership and career development, including Harrison Assessments. She earned an MBA from the University of Houston Clear Lake with honors. She is active in nonprofit organizations and passionately works to improve people's quality of life by helping them grow spiritually, emotionally, and intellectually in their personal and professional lives.
Well, I'm one of those who's not a technical person. But my area is talent management, so I work with people from all different backgrounds and industries and functions, and so I get the privilege to sit shoulder to shoulder with the experts, and that's where I like to be. So I'd like to ask a question of you. How many of you enjoy working for organizations and with functions that are innovative? How many like to work in it? Let's see your hands real tall. Okay, I think we have near 100% there. We all are in the right place because this school and what they're teaching and the field that they're preparing you for is on the cutting edge of innovation in healthcare. I was reading the Wall Street Journal just this morning, I believe. It may have been yesterday's. And there was an article about merger and acquisitions. Guess what industry topped by a large percentage the mergers and acquisitions? It was healthcare. And there's a lot of capital going into healthcare. There's wherever there's capital, there's change. Wherever there's change, there's opportunity. So this is an area where the sky is the limit. And whatever your aspirations might be in the area of biomedical informatics, there's going to be an opportunity for you. And Susan had asked me to talk a little bit about what employers are looking for. I had the privilege of being with the students, and perhaps some of you attended the career day that we had a while back. And there were a number of themes that we looked at in that program. And one of the top ones in terms of what do employers want, what are they looking for, I can say it in one word, and that is value. If you can bring value to the organization, then you are wanted. And what do I mean by value? Every single one of you have a unique value, and it's incumbent upon you to be able to identify what that value is and to be able to communicate it effectively so that you can be in the right place at the right time for the right employer. And that takes some preparation, takes some assessment, both of your background as well as your skills. Perhaps you'll want to even do a career assessment. And even as you prepare your resume, you're going to be doing an evaluation of what value you bring to an employer. When we did the career day at the very end, I asked all the participants, I said, how many of you think that you have an A+ resume? And there was not one person that raised their hand. After hearing what they could do to truly enhance their resume and communicate to potential employers the skills and capabilities and accomplishments that they have in their repertoire. So it's very important to be able to communicate that, and each one of you have a unique value package to offer to employers. Another thing that we looked at is preparation. And there are two areas where you really can't over-prepare. And one of those areas is in networking. You cannot over-prepare. And the second area is in interviewing. So those are a couple of ideas to share with you. I'm going to pass the microphone to the next.
Our next panelist is Dr. Adol Esquivel. Dr. Esquivel obtained a Master of Science and doctoral degree in Health Informatics from the UT Health Science Center School of Biomedical Informatics. During this time, Dr. Esquivel conducted and published important work to validate the use of digital imagery for diabetic retinopathy screening using telemedicine. Additionally, Dr. Esquivel led a variety of health informatics education and health technology projects, including the UT Health Science Center at Houston's participation in the Apple's iTunes University Initiative. He also graduated from the UT MD Anderson Cancer Center Clinical Safety and Effectiveness Education Program in 2007. Prior to attending SBMI, Dr. Esquivel completed his medical training in Mexico and his National Social Service as a research fellow. His research focuses on characterizing and understanding communication between primary care providers and specialists using electronic health records to coordinate outpatient referrals. Dr. Esquivel is currently employed at St. Luke's Health System. He was promoted to Assistant Vice President of Performance Measurement in 2012 and is currently responsible for quality and statistical analysis of priority populations, clinical abstraction services, and clinical databases for quality reporting.
Thank you. It is really an honor to be here sitting with this panel and to be on this side, because I still consider myself a student having graduated from this program, so I'm very proud of being part of this, so thank you. I want to share with you two things. One, a little bit of my path that has brought me to where I am today. I was a medical student in Mexico that got the opportunity when I graduated to do my internship in Baylor, so I got exposed to some of the great things that happened here at the medical center, and then I got the opportunity to go to NIH to explore one of their medical informatics fellowships at that time, which really connected me to the potential of medical informatics back then. I then decided to come to this school, and I was talking with Jody on the way here that one of the main reasons why I chose this program was the multidisciplinary focus that this school has. Unlike other schools that were aimed for physicians or nurses, this program really was designed to be multidisciplinary and to bring students from different areas, which when you think about it, it was very well thought in the sense that that's what we need today. If you go to our hospitals, if you go to our groups, you see that we have computer scientists, nurses, engineers, and human factors people from all sorts of different backgrounds, because that's really where our problems are going to be solved, from all these multiple perspectives. If I were to share one thing with you, if you're a student or about to graduate or about to go into look for a job, I think this is the most exciting time for health informatics that we could have hoped for, because if I tell you that there are 10 problems that medical informatics is going to solve in the next 10, 15 years, we haven't even solved the first one. So the next 9 are there for you to solve. I had the opportunity to have great mentors during my training here who exposed me to the theoretical aspect of medical informatics, but when I made the jump to the hospital to work with teams that are actually dealing with these problems, I realized that it's that applying of the theories, it's that applying of what you learned in the classroom that really excites me at least, and I think that there's a lot to be said about the ability to bring what you learn in the classroom and apply it to solve real problems at the hospital. The biggest challenge I think that all of our hospitals and healthcare in the United States in general is going to be facing is moving away from using claims financial data to speak about healthcare outcomes and to really leverage these massive amounts of clinical data that we're now able to capture in our EHRs. How do we put that to work to make better decisions, to get better outcomes at a population level, and ultimately to do better for our patients? I have the opportunity to be part of a group that is not a traditional IT or medical informatics group within the hospital. Our group is in quality, and our group has a very interesting mix of people. We have physicians who have training in statistics. We have computer scientists, engineers that we're now working hand in hand with IT, and the value of being able to understand IT speak, to be able to understand computer science, to be able to understand human factors, and to be able to understand project management of an EHR deployment and so forth is probably the biggest asset in terms of the work that we do. So if anything, I encourage you to seek real work experience during your training. Get out there. All these posters are wonderful, and it's a great proof of the work that you're doing. The more you get to apply that to real projects in our hospitals, I mean, we live in the medical center where there's just tons of opportunities for you to take what you learn in your classes and really apply it in the real world. And I said it last time that I was here, and I said again, the doors to our hospitals are really open, and the students, when they knock on the doors of our hospitals, our departments, I think you have great opportunities to come and learn, to come and practice, and to come and help us solve the problems that we are truly facing. So that's my speech.
Dr. Stephen Jones is a clinical informaticist dedicated to raising the standard of care for all patients worldwide. He graduated from the University of Texas Health Science Center in Houston Medical School and entered an internal medicine residency program at his home institution in 1995. It was during this time that he was first exposed to the field of medical informatics and found his true calling in medicine. He spent the next 7 years founding a clinical documentation software company and architecting a widely used commercial electronic prescribing solution which is still in use today. Dr. Jones is are you a clinical informaticist or CMIO? Clinical informaticist at the Methodist Hospital.
I have to look at my thing here because I can speak for hours. Okay, somebody has to kick me in 5 minutes. That's 5:55. There we go. First of all, thank you for giving me the honor to be here again, because I was just thinking while Adol was speaking that it seems like yesterday I was you, and it's been 4 years for me now. It's like, that's why I have more gray hair too. But before I really launch into this too, I wanted to make sure that I left you with something that took me way too long before I really understood what it meant. Was it something my grandfather said, and he said, son, at the end of the day, what is anybody's job? What is anybody's job? We all have the same job. It's to make your boss look good. And as long as you do a good job of that, you're in good shape. And fortunately, for those of us that are in this field, we have the opportunity to not only make our bosses look good, but to do things that will really help raise the standard of care. For the first time, we're finally collecting all this data that for the longest time it just disappeared into the doctor's lab book, basically, also known as the medical chart. And what Aldo has said, I agree with 110% if it's even possible to do that, and that I really think some of the greatest opportunities that healthcare informatics has right now is going to be in the realm of quality. There's a whole institute out there called PCORI, Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute, that's very well funded, and what we're seeing now in the industry is an alignment of the industry, basically health insurance, the government, and patients. We're tired of paying for things that don't work, but we don't know what those things are. And the way we find that out is by analyzing the clinical data that we finally have now. So those are the kind of skills that I think if you take the time while you're in training to go learn something about what is quality at a hospital, what is that all about? And get involved with people like that so you understand what the tools of the trade are, a lot of statistics, a lot of innovation, just literally sitting in the room with a multidisciplinary, I call it transdisciplinary now because it really cuts across disciplines, not just a whole bunch of different ones. And come up with solutions to, these are hard problems. If they were easy, we would have solved it already. And this entire field has been sort of existing since Ledley came up with it in 1956. And we really haven't solved any of the bigger problems yet. And we're looking to people like you to do that. The next thing on the job front is, what am I looking for people I hire? Is I want to get a sense from somebody, and it's very difficult to do that from a two-dimensional representation of a resume, or even the opportunity of a phone interview or a face-to-face interview. I'm just trying to get a sense from you that I can trust you, that you have high ethics, and that you're not going to turn something around back to me that you're not proud of. So take that with you. Make your boss look good, and don't turn in anything you're not proud of. If you have problems with something, get some help. Like the rule Dr. Becnel had there, 15 minutes you're banging your head against the wall, it's ridiculous. Go get some help. And have everybody in a team to do that for you. I wouldn't be even in this seat right now if it wasn't for this school. I was very fortunate in that I came into work for the Methodist Hospital about 7 going on 8 years ago, and got to step into a project that was just getting started, where we were trying to use clinical informatics to sort of detect the signal and the noise. The signal we were looking for is what are the first harbinger signs of a patient that's at risk for developing sepsis. Turns out it's really very simple, but it took a lot of time to get there, and using the tools of informatics to figure out what it is we needed to do to build an instrument that could identify these folks so we could then send the shock troops in to take care of them before they got worse. And that whole thing is since then, you know, it was really, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. This is not just my idea, not even close. And we've been able to save over 800 lives since in the 4 years that the thing's been up and running since then. And for me, that's a lot of moms, dads, grandmothers, grandfathers, friends, aunts, uncles, cousins. You get the picture that taking clinical informatics and applying it in the real world has been able to have them walk out of our facilities when they would not have been predicted to have otherwise. That's the field that you're going into, and those are the kind of people that we're looking to bring into it. They're also as passionate about it as I am. And I know you guys are too. I've had an opportunity to speak with some of you. You got some of the greatest professors here, Todd Johnson, Dean Sittig. Dean Zhang wasn't the dean when I first started here, but he's leading the school in a fabulous fashion. Take the opportunity while you're here to bend these people's ears and figure out what their perspectives are on things. It's worth it.
Our next panelist is Dr. Robert Murphy. He has served as the Chief Medical Informatics Officer at Memorial Hermann Healthcare System since 2006. He is responsible for system-wide leadership on clinical information system projects, including computerized physician order entry, clinical decision support, and quality informatics. He was named by Modern Healthcare Magazine in 2010, 2011, and 2012 as one of the nation's top 25 clinical informaticists. His project for CDS Good Catches, which prevented over 7,000 medical errors over a one-year period, was awarded the Breakthrough of the Year in Quality at Memorial Hermann in 2010.
I work with Charles at Memorial Hermann. I'm Bob Murphy. I'm the system's Chief Medical Informatics Officer, and now going to be titled the Chief Health Informatics Officer in a larger role, I guess, for the organization over all of the informatics work in the organization. For me, I'll share a few moments of what my background was. It's probably not the usual track record you hear to get into the field, and then a little bit on the themes that we're looking at in the candidates for the future. For me personally, I actually was a history major in college. I had no idea that I wanted to do anything with computer sciences or informatics. I didn't even know what the field was. As I came through medical school, I became an emergency physician and did emergency medicine for the first 10 years of my career. It was very happenstance how this came to pass, but the director came to me one day and said, "Bob, would you be the assistant medical director, and you can do the schedule, and you can plan off when you want to have your weekends off to play golf and ride your bike." Like, great, I'll do it. Then he left, and I became director of the ER. Then our hospital acquired 4 other ERs, and I became regional director for 5 ERs in a period of about 6 months. And it was not long in that job when I started to see the importance of having data. Everybody wanted to see time in department improved or quality measures, and we at that point in the mid-90s had almost nothing. Everything was paper. And so I learned about a position in the organization called the Chief Information Officer, and I started to introduce myself to him, and I started complaining to him about why we can't get scanned EKGs, why we can't lab results stay in the computer for more than 3 days. And before you know it, I was on a committee, and let's just fast forward, became an informaticist. Over that period, though, I was in Louisville, Kentucky, and what you quickly saw was my clinical background was really what distinguished me in that early phase of the development. Again, in the late 90s, I think the school was just getting started, one of the earliest and first schools, but for me at that period, there was not a lot of folks who went to get master's degrees. It was more a formal degree and going toward a PhD and something like that. So I learned from the School of Hard Knocks. I went to Dean Sittig's weekend classes at AMIA and HIMSS and things like that. But over the years, mine was really the experiences of implementing systems at large healthcare organizations and helping grow my partners in the clinical fields to help us design, architect, implement, train, and build and support systems going forward. When I came here to Houston 9 years ago, actually at that point at Memorial Hermann, since we have 13 hospitals, I actually let go of my clinical career, and so now I'm a full-time medical informatics, health informaticist, so I don't see patients anymore. So what I'm finding is my career goes forward. Now I'm more in a kind of an executive administrative role, and I have people like Charles who help me find people and recruit and hire people. So, you know, right now I have 4 full-time physicians who are informaticists, and I also have about 15 physicians who are part-time paid for that role. We also have about 40 informatics personnel from nursing, clinical, medical, and pharmacy informatics. So we have a very broad group of folks that we bring into our organization. But the things that are going forward, I think I'll follow up on the themes here. I mean, quality, outcomes really is what you see in the national programs for meaningful use and things like that. But for us as an organization, as a community-based organization, improving the health of our community is a real fundamental thing of what we got to go do. And undoubtedly, the information technology and informatics platforms are what we're going to use to go do it. So you all will have a great deal of backgrounds getting into the field, your graduate degrees, your personal backgrounds from clinical or non-clinical fields. But I guess we'll also follow up the previous themes that have been established here with what we're looking for in the future. I mean, we need you to be knowledgeable and skilled in the field. You need to be smart. You need to work hard, all those things. For me, one of the distinguishing characteristics of informatics versus just pure information science or pure computer science or programming is we as informaticists see the human aspect of all that we do. And it's the human aspect in the care that's delivered to our patients. I think Stephen's work with sepsis, understanding those are your family, your friends, the people in the community. But it's also the relationships you have as an informaticist, and you lead other teams, and you're part of teams that must work together to drive that value. And so some of the distinguishing characteristics I look for really is that ability to communicate. You might have the skills and the knowledge, but as the informaticist, I expect that to be a leadership role to help lead other groups of clinicians and IT professionals to move forward on creating solutions. So for me, that's really something I would help try to find those opportunities in your career to date and in your academic environment to make sure that professional communication, the ability to present, to synthesize, to argue, to debate. For me, with our group of 40 informaticists, we probably have roughly 100 projects in flight, and I probably touch 75 of them as the medical informatics officer. When I see a staff member, they've got 5 to 10 minutes maybe to update me on the program. I seek out the informaticist. I want to know the person who knows the most about the project, who can brief me quickly, precisely, and let me know the risk, what we need to do, what the ideas we are to go forward. And so that's, again, as an informaticist, something that's above and beyond what many of your colleagues have going into the field. So use that and use it well.
Craig Owen, our next panelist, is Executive Director, EHR for MD Anderson Cancer Center. In this role, he leads the initiative to implement the electronic health records system for the institution. Craig joined MD Anderson in 1992. He has broad experience, leadership, and knowledge from the tasks he has participated in during his career. He has held a number of positions, including Manager of Referral Programs and Systems in the Office of Physician Relations, Manager of Analyst Services, and Manager of Perioperative and Critical Care Informatics. In the role of Associate Director of Clinical Analytics and Informatics, he helped to shape and lead the institutional clinical warehousing and business intelligence strategies. Craig conveys an understanding of both theoretical as well as practical knowledge in his current position. He has presented at a number of national meetings.
So my name's Craig Owen. I'm the EHR Executive Director at MD Anderson Cancer Center. My career started out back in the 80s when I went to work for a company called PerkinElmer that became Concurrent Computer Corporation. And it just so happened that much of the work that I was doing was focused on the hardware platform for lottery systems, for NASA, for space shuttle simulation, and MD Anderson was my customer. So it was interesting that I started going out to MD Anderson back in '86, and in around 1990, they started to recruit me. And so my first job at MD Anderson was in '92, June of 1992, and I was supporting the lab system. We had our own in-house developed lab system there. What was interesting about that job is the individual that hired me said, there's 2 things, Craig, that I'll promise you if you work here more than 6 months. 1, you'll never be bored. And 2, you'll have a patient or a friend or a family member will become a patient at MD Anderson. And both of those things have happened. I've never been bored at MD Anderson, and I've had multiple friends or family members come through. And you begin to connect to the mission of truly making cancer history. And I have said to many folk that if you can't connect with our mission, you're not going to connect with a mission anywhere on this planet. So with that, my career really has evolved at MD Anderson from, again, really supporting the lab system. I started to get into analytics and the use of information to bend that back around from an operations perspective, and that's really what I've built my career on at MD Anderson. The one thing that I will say to you that all of you are sharp in the room. Obviously, you wouldn't be here if you weren't. You've learned a great deal over the years, and I concur with everybody that have said things on this panel. The one thing that I would really challenge you with is learn to listen. Listen and probe for the questions, because sometimes you will have a physician that may come to you with a specific request or something like that related to their problem that they think they're trying to solve. And as you start to probe down, if you had just given to them what they asked for, that's not really necessarily the root of what they actually need. So learn how to listen well and probe to really understand what the problem is that the individuals are trying to solve.
Dr. Riggs is our next panelist. He graduated from Trinity University in 1982 and the University of Texas Medical School at Houston in 1986. He is board certified in both clinical informatics and obstetrics and gynecology and has taught since 1990 as a UT OB-GYN faculty member at the Lyndon B. Johnson General Hospital. In 2002, he completed a Master's of Science degree from SBMI and currently serves as the Chief Medical Informatics Officer, although now it's Department Chair of OB-GYN, isn't it? Vice Chair of OB-GYN. And adjunct associate professor in bioinformatics at SBMI. He has led the design and physician adoption of the Harris Health System electronic health record since 2005, which provides the citizens of Harris County with over 1.2 million outpatient and emergency room visits and 36,000 hospital admissions per year.
Yeah, again, my name is John Riggs. And I think, arguably, I may have been the first student to actually enroll here. I wasn't the first student to graduate from here. I think Constance was. But if I wasn't the first, I was really close. And my story is such that I didn't major in history. I majored in Spanish. And I did that when I was pre-med because I knew that when I was in college, I wanted to study something. If I was going to medical school, I knew I was going to be studying science. I wanted to study something else that was going to help scratch that itch of wanting to understand people. And so as I progressed through my medical career, after I graduated from residency, I took various roles in leadership, mostly on the educational front. I've always been very, very interested in the educational process and in how people learn how to do complex things, how to build educational programs. And I was always that guy that got thrown into the room when the doctors and the nurses weren't getting along together. And there's just something about my personality that made me not afraid of those kinds of situations. And when I'd been a practicing OB-GYN for about 10 years on the faculty in the medical school, I went to a program at RHIA that was sort of almost like a mini MBA course. And the speakers there was lots of panels just like this. And what they told me that I took away is we don't need more doctors with MBAs. We need healthcare people who understand healthcare and they understand information systems. I was like, really? So this is like in the early to mid 90s, and it just so happened that within a year they opened this school. And I said, I want to do that. I didn't know what it was, but I wanted some of that. And so I completed my master's program in the 2001-2002 period, and that was really when electronic health records were starting to become something more than a research phenomenon in some special niche institutions. And I jumped on that surfboard and rode it with the Harris County Hospital District, now Harris Health. And increasingly kind of found myself in those positions where I needed to help people understand each other between different groups. And I think the ideal picture I get in my head when I'm thinking of clinical informatics, I think of that classic Venn diagram. You guys remember Venn diagrams from third grade, right? You know, it's three circles that overlap each other. The three circles are clinical care, operations, and IT. And as a clinical informatician, I live at that intersection. right? I live where those three things overlap. This isn't something I thought up. This is just a common description of it. And what do people do who spend all their time in intersections? They dodge things, right? So actually, as an informatician, I find that I've had to grow a lot of skills to direct people to the right people. The people in the clinical bubble think that I control all of IT. The people in the IT bubble think I control all of the clinical people or all the operational people or vice versa. And I have to spend a lot of time getting people to understand exactly what the other people do. So as clinical informaticians, I'm not sure exactly where your career path is, but I think you want to find that thing inside you that helps you understand the other people in the other bubbles. And all this advice you're getting here is I think pointing in the same direction. What are those things that those people are frustrated with? And how can you get under the hood of that and understand it deeply enough, not just from your own perspective of what you know from reading in your books, but really understand their problem? I think as far as some career paths that I've seen very successful for people who are at an entry level into clinical informatics, that really get them engaged at the heart of the organization very early. If you can find a way to be involved in educational programs, again, here's me spinning that plate again, but if you can get yourself involved in educational programs on helping users learn how to use these very complex systems, then you will not only learn how to use the complex system yourself, but you will also learn how they think. It may not be helping physicians adopt an EHR. It may be something like a research analytical program and helping people understand how to use that system and what the limitations of it are. Those are very useful entry points into a complex system. But you're going to have to find that thing about you that you're good with, and you're going to carry it with you wherever you go. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is don't fool yourself into believing that you or the person next to you have whatever that thing is figured out. The best answers to whatever problem it is that your group is working on may not come from the people you're working with. So you need to network. You need to look at all the other organizations. One thing that I love about the health informatics or health information system culture today is what I found is there's not a real prideful protection of intellectual property. We're all, regardless of what institution we're working in, we're all trying to make our patients' lives better and try to keep information technology from making it worse and hopefully leveraging it to make it better. And so there's not a month that doesn't go by that I don't try to call this guy up and say, how did you do that? We're on completely different electronic health records. But make sure you're networking with people, whatever level you're coming into health informatics at. Make sure you're networking with people like you who are solving the same kinds of problems. They may be in Florida or Denmark or wherever. Make sure you do that because you will get so much useful information. You'll be able to solve the problems because they have already done it.
Jody Spaulding. Ms. Spaulding joined Deloitte Consulting almost 2 years ago in the technology service area for healthcare providers. She has over 30 years of experience in healthcare and healthcare IT in both the provider and consulting sectors and has led multiple projects, including most recently serving as the project executive on a number of multi-facility Epic EHR implementations. Jody has market eminence as a thought leader in healthcare provider IT, most recently in executive advisory roles over large-scale system implementations. And her expertise covers many different healthcare systems, primarily in Epic and Cerner, and it spans the continuum from IT strategic and tactical planning to system selection and project planning through execution. Her focus has been on assisting clients in defining and developing system solutions to realize their strategic, financial, patient safety and quality, and clinical transformation goals.
Thank you. So I think we're hearing some similar themes across the board here. So for myself, I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to begin my career in healthcare and healthcare IT in the late 70s, early 80s when information systems were in their infancy at that point in time. And we struggled in those days for different reasons, but with similar challenges. The total absence of actionable, meaningful information. And back then it was mostly because we didn't have it. Systems were financial. Even the early clinical systems were not a clinical so that we could get better financial data. And then I was, through my career, fortunate enough to watch that evolution and the integration and development of the information systems we have today and the clinical evolution and the clinical data. And I find myself, after all these many years, looking back at what we're hearing here, and we have some of the same problems. To get to that actionable, meaningful data, it's not the dearth of data it was then, it's this volume. We are overwhelmed with data, and the inability, without skilled expertise and informaticians, to translate data into information that's meaningful for us and actionable for us. I live every day in a world from challenge to challenge and crisis to crisis, and there is no absence of the data that gets thrown at us on a given day trying to figure out what is going on, what's causing something, what we might be able to do to fix it, how we might be able to best respond, what data our physicians need, our clinicians need. My background is not an RN or an MD, I'm a technologist. So for me, the one thing I think that I can say for those of you coming from similar backgrounds is I had a little bit of a hill to climb through my career because as part of a healthcare data analyst, the data analyst part was the easy part for me. The IT systems was the easy part for me. The other half of that equation is healthcare. So even today, and I have the great benefit of working with Adol and a fabulous team at St. Luke's, but the healthcare side of it is where we still struggle in some cases, because without that healthcare knowledge of what goes on in healthcare, what the processes are, what the operations are, what the business of healthcare is, the data, in some cases, we end up with errors in causality, errors in miscalculation of impact, because the data is just the data. So through my career, my challenge, without the benefit of an RN degree or a physician degree, was to get that exposure for myself in a variety of ways. And I went out and found opportunities where I could participate in healthcare initiatives, work for healthcare companies. I did quite a bit of a stint on clinical workflow just as an adjunct to information systems, so I could learn the healthcare side of it enough that when I looked at the data, it meant something more to me than just pure data. And focusing that in the world of technology as we do today, the benefit of informatics and what Adol's team and them provide for us is really the basic tenet to be able to get decisionable, actionable data that can improve and the care of our patients, and we can put it in the hands of our providers and practitioners. And when I sit back and look at the work, and I did quite a bit of research in coming in here, and I have a little bit of a different background and challenge, but I understand that many people here are the same. And I think that when we step back and we look at, and I love the Venn diagram analogy, because you're absolutely correct, and we actively seek out people who are comfortable at that intersection, not just sitting on the periphery, but are comfortable there, because there's a lot of people in the work that we do every day, even in the work at St. Luke's, in each of those different pockets that really just don't speak the same language. So maybe the Spanish was helpful as well. So for us, the informatics value is people who have the ability to translate the healthcare operations and the healthcare side to the clinical and data side. They speak both languages. So I have my IT communications and my clinical communications, and they sit at that intersection for us. So no matter what's going on, no matter who's in the room, no matter who's disagreeing with whom, they become that mediator, that translator. They understand both sides. So just as a go forward and a recommendation is to take it on yourself. We heard a lot of self-initiative. You need to go out and self-educate in some cases and figure out where your strengths are and make an effort to find venues and avenues to bolster the other side so that you can, the closer you get to the center of that Venn diagram, the more value you're going to have in an ongoing informatics role, when you can understand and communicate with all the different constituents and be the one that bring them together. That's invaluable in the work that we do today.
You didn't get an introduction. You can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Charles Mendoza, and I work for Moy Herman. I am in the talent acquisition department, and so I am the guy who's looking at the resumes. So I'm the guy that you have to get past to get into to get an interview. And so I want to reiterate that how important that resume is. Make sure it's focused. Make sure there's no spelling errors. Make sure that the dates are correct. Some hiring managers are a lot pickier than others, but I've had tons of them say, not even looking at it, not even going to look at it. So, that's something it's small, but it's very important. I can tell when somebody puts a lot of effort into the resume and also the interview. So being prepared is very key to breaking in. There's hundreds of applicants that apply every day to the positions I post. So how do you stick out? One thing to do is to come to events like this. You network, you meet with people, and it's not the first time you meet with me that I might get you something. It might be the second, third, or fourth time, or it might be a colleague of yours gets a job somewhere else, but they met you here. So the time and effort is now, and it will have payoffs. So just wanted to give you my 2 cents about that, and any questions you might have.
No questions from either prospective students or our students. This is your chance to ask people who are actually out there. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi. For those of us who are in medical nursing, physician assistant, all these programs right now as students, how do you recommend us going forward into integrating this education into our current education? Like, I'm a med student over at UT Houston, and I may be an MS1, but I also recognize the importance of this integrating into my education. So how do I balance this?
Well, congratulations. I think you're making a wise choice to ask these questions. There's really an innumerable ways in which you could learn not only about informatics during your medical career, but also information technology and operations, et cetera. I think there are a number of excellent resources that you could attach yourself to. AMIA is one good resource. The American Medical Informatics Association, right? And they have a number of educational programs that you can, and journals, et cetera, that you can delve into. I think also as you get further in your clinical training, or into your clinical training, make sure you do everything you can to really learn how the information systems that are prevalent in the organizations you'll rotate through, how do they work and how do they impact the people around you? And if you have the time, try to involve yourself in some of the discussions about new things that are being turned on in those information systems, because I think all of us would agree whatever information system you're touching during that one part of your education, there's going to be new things happening to it all the time, and make sure you're not missing opportunities to learn about those. And if you find that you become very comfortable with the information systems early on, be that person that helps your peers learn how to use that system. I think also there's a lot to be said for learning the quality programs and the research programs that are abundant in the institutions that you're going to be working through. And you can involve yourself directly in those through work with committees or in research, in patient safety and other initiatives. There's just about everything we do now is in information systems. So pick one of those. It's like, I love metaphors. It's like there's this big merry-go-round spinning around really fast. And you can sit there and just look at all the things going by and never decide which one to get on, or you can just dive into that thing and just, you'll stumble around at first, but eventually you're going to get your feet under you and you'll start being able to move with everything going on. So not a specific answer, but I'm sure my peers have better ones.
But I would say, as a first-year medical student, of course, it's going to be hard in your early clinical career to make a change to John's Epic or my Cerner. There may be some projects to get involved with. But one other opportunity is, I think, within your own medical school, be that, that sort of person who finds some problem to go solve. I can remember one of my colleagues in residency, very early on in computers, we were all doing procedures. We had to keep them on an index card, and he created a small database where we could all track our procedures. I mean, that was awesome. He's now actually a CMIO in his career as well. So, find small problems to solve. And I tell you, nothing impresses me more in a resume, depending on where you trained or anything else, but when I see a history of someone who can solve problems and give me real tangible things. Hey, we had a problem with the first year students, we couldn't do X, Y, and Z, and I helped go solve that problem. Your stock goes way up. I mean, it's going to be hard again to make a massive change to a big system that we run, but within your own sphere of influence, that's the kind of things I think that really go a long way for me when I look at potential applicants.
All of our successes are thousands of little things like that that have added up.
That's a great question. I didn't give you guys my background, how I ended up in this chair, through medical school and so on. But for me, my first formal exposure to clinical informatics was at Memorial Hermann when I was in residency, when they were bringing in the Cerner system. They just spent wrath of God money on it, and they were bringing it in. So it was a unique opportunity. It really was to see how a large company like Cerner comes in with a tremendous amount of experience in the lab. They own that, and they were just getting their feet wet in the clinical space, and then they were looking to us, the hospital, medical students, the faculty, and so on, to sort of help them wedge this in, and that was really where I got my first exposure to it. Thinking about medical school training, your time, the first year is very. I don't know how I could fit like a master's program into my first year. Maybe you're smarter than I am. The second year, because you got your feet under you and you're better at it, try to talk with the folks here at your medical school to see if there isn't some way to sort of share space. The educational institutions here do share a lot of overlap. A lot of the barriers are brought down, so that it should be feasible. Third year, probably not going to have much time to put towards this, and fourth year, you should. And by the end of it, you might end up with a master's and an MD before you get out. And that'll get you the formal experience and the clinical experience, and as Dr. Riggs said and Dr. Murphy said, get involved. Find out what the clinical documentation committees are up to when they meet, and find out who's the chair. Ask them if you could be involved, just to sit in to see what the process is. It was tremendously eye-opening for me. It was so much so that I stepped out of residency right at the end of my second year and founded a clinical documentation company. Like most clinical software like that, it's in the graveyard that is vast. I have a headstone out there, but we we were able to do some good stuff. Like they mentioned in the intro, that the prescription system that we wrote is still out there. It was one of the first CCHIT certified ones, and I got to be part of that. But that's what I would advise you to do. To take your interest, look at you're really going to have to be exceptionally good at managing your time to be able to succeed at medical school and then tackle another master's program. It's about the same level of as an MPH at the same time, this amount of time required. So it's doable. Just speak with your leaders at your school and the leaders here and see if something couldn't work out.
And one last comment. One of the first things that they teach you in this program is that an implementation of an EHR of any clinical program is not an IT-led project, and if it is, it's doomed. It's led by physicians and nurses, and those are your subject matter experts, of your champions. So to echo what they just told you, become that champion. Even early on, if you can find who is the champion for an implementation and just go with him and be close to that project and eventually grow into being one of the champions, an early adopter, I think that will give you a lot of exposure. Because I don't think anybody here will deny that the first thing that we look for when we're rolling something out is who's going to be our champion, our clinical champion that is going to roll this out. So that will give you a lot of exposure.
Thank you. And to answer you directly, we'll be happy to work with you. Be happy to meet with you. So, other questions? Yes, thank you.
Good evening.
Hi.
Okay, I have a question. After a lot of research and looking online for jobs in the field, I see that most jobs require certification in Epic, Cerner, all the systems, and it's really, really difficult and discouraging when it's hard to get the certification and then it's a requirement to get the job. So I need help, please.
I work for St. Luke's. We're implementing Epic. We're going to go live in a couple of other hospitals, and in my department, I've hired in the past 2 years 10 people without EPIC certification that we've sent for training. And so there are a lot of positions that, yeah, they may require their EPIC training, but there are tons of them that may not live under IT, may not live in the usual places that will send you for that training. And so my advice is just keep your eyes open. Don't look for the traditional positions. It's just now that we're starting to call those positions clinical informatics, but you can still find jobs that are informatics in nature, even though their title doesn't say so, that will send you for that training. So just keep networking and asking people.
Just a little bit. So at the school, we're actively working on our virtual health information technology laboratory. We actually already have Cerner and are strengthening that with Memorial Hermann, but we're also looking to incorporate EPIC, and we're working with some of the hospitals around here for that also. But the other thing I'll tell you is, from my perspective, and I'm not certified in either one, but if I sit down with an EHR, I've had enough experience where I can sort of tell quickly, is it good, is it not good? And what's more important is I can tell whether or not your workflow will fit with that EHR if we need to make modifications. And so one of the things you need to present, presuming you have the appropriate training, is that you're not just there as someone who only knows one tool, because, right, if all you've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, okay? But that you can actively, again, bring that value, help them, say, I may not be certified, but I've had enough exposure to enough different systems that I can do some workflow analysis for you, and I can determine whether or not that EHR is even doing what it should be doing to match your workflow. So those are the kinds of things. Does that help? Great.
But to what Aldo said, you're absolutely right. It's like, how do you get EPIC certification unless you're working for some place implementing EPIC? We're in that boat now. We're in the process of kicking our EHR to the curb and bringing EPIC in. And the first people that get on the certification bus are the people that are already on board, but none of them had EPIC certification. So, or actually we have a few, but the way in the door right now, at least at the place that's getting ready to get started, is just come in as like a project manager or somebody, just so you get your foot in the door, let people know you, and then they'll put you on the bus and fly you to Madison, and or whatever they do. But it's really awesome up there actually. But that's probably the best thing to do with that, because like we all said the same thing. We're looking for good people, and we realized that coming right out of school, you probably not going to have certification yet. Why do we put that as a requirement? And then for guys that are in HR, if you don't check that box, you're not going to that job. I'm never going to see your application. Is because somebody who's already had some other company has incurred the expense of training you to get that certification, and we're looking to leverage that. Quite honestly, it's what it is. But if you come in and you're good, you can probably get that's the best way to go ahead and get that kind of certification.
And I'll jump in real quick. So I see the resumes, and I've seen some of you guys out there. I know some of you. I've been here, this is my second or third time here. And so it's true that Cerner or EPIC will be a quicker way to get your foot in the door. But if you're part of a small EHR, you're part of a smaller system, and you can say that you know how to query information, that you've solved problems in that EHR before, you have the initiative to do those things, then I'll put you in the maybe list. And these skill sets are so rare that being on the maybe list is a good thing. And so it may be you have EHR experience, and then you also have a quirky experience in something else that I need. You have clinical experience, you have experience with physician practices, and then you become a yes. So you're building your resume to have these experiences so that you become a stronger and stronger candidate. I've seen candidates who had zero experience, and within a year and a half, I was able to get them an informatics position. So it's not an automatic thing. And so even if it just says EPIC or Cerner, I would still apply,
So this may be tough to hear when you have a master's degree and you want to start at the top. I get questions all the time. How do you become a CMIO? I'm like, I don't know, get board certified in emergency medicine, be a medical director for 5 years, and you just walk right into it. History major. But I think to Charles' point is, you got to be hungry and start at an organization. So if you're going to be in Houston, you can't go around the country, find one of the places that's looking for a support analyst. I can tell you, my three of my best informatics directors all started as a support analyst. One with a master's and the other two are working on it. But they just started supporting it. And you know what? You spend 6 months in that job, Charles doesn't even get the phone call. I mean, I checked with, I said, who's our best support analyst out there? Oh, it's, you know, Susan at this hospital. Great, we need an informaticist. Can she do, and bam, you got it. So a quick, best way is just get entry positions and be flexible and work hard, and that'll be the best way to get in there.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. That I would also add any of your performance improvement, quality departments, where you get into those groups where they're analyzing data. We at MD Anderson, we're also looking for associate EHR analysts, and you don't have to be certified in Epic, and you don't have to have experience, but you do have to have a degree. So don't just look for the obvious thing, look for the other alternatives to get in the door.
I'll speak a little bit from experience here. So my bachelor's degree is in health information management in 1987, and I actually started at what was then Herman. It was not Memorial Herman, and I got the job because I had volunteered with within the local region with the professionals, and so they knew me. Okay, and I've only ever, after 25 years, gotten one job where I didn't already know someone. So network, 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 network. So that's the other thing, is to join the professional associations, go to the lunch and learns that HIMSS has, get to know people, get to meet people, because volunteer. If you produce as a volunteer, you'll produce when they're paying you, right? So that's how you build your credibility and your reputation. So, and with that, we are out of time. Thank you for coming. Please join me in thanking our wonderful panel again. Y'all were excellent. Thank you so much.